It is possible for us as humans to know what the birds are saying and what they're communicating. Just last week, one of my advanced skills students, this is a student who's worked with me for over a year, was wrapping up her course. She finished it, and I have them do a reflection of the past year. And she was saying, it's like, Kristi, like, I was sitting outside with my husband after I finished it, and I was telling him, like, I really feel like I've learned a lot, like in this last year. I've learned a ton of bird ID and all sorts of behavior and this and that. And she's like, but the one thing I don't think I'm very good at is bird language, which is knowing what the birds are communicating and knowing what's like their alarm calls and what they're saying to us. Um, and she said literally about 20 seconds after she said that to her husband, they hear this bird alarm next to them. And she's not even thinking about what she just said to him. And she was just like, she said to her husband, I wonder if that's about us. Like if the birds were upset that they were on the deck. And then she said the next moment, she's like, no, that's not about us. That's something else. Like, let's watch and listen. And so then she said, like, another couple minutes later, she sees this hawk just like fly by. And she was just like, I knew it. Like, I knew that it wasn't about me, that these birds were communicating. And so she's like, yeah, I guess I am kind of good at this bird language thing. So it is totally possible to interpret what the birds are saying. And so in today's practice, we're going to dive into my 3-step process for helping us to connect in a quiet way, in a grounded way to the world around us, and to learn how to start to perceive what the world is communicating to us. For those of you who are new here, this is the Mindful Bird Sit. I'm Kristi from Bird Mentor, where I teach people how to connect more deeply to the birds in their backyards and all around the world. Let's get started. So let's begin. Hi, everybody who just joined us. Susie, Marisa, good to see you. Gabrielle. And find a comfortable place to sit. And just start to look around, listen around, just without really putting too much efforting in. And just kind of notice who and what is around you. Notice the colors and shapes, textures, quality of sound. And then I want you to expand your awareness. Again, we'll use all of our senses to begin with. So expand your awareness, go beyond what you can see in your kind of that first zone that we typically look and listen in. So start to stretch your eyes, maybe look in the gaps of the trees in between the houses. Listen a little bit further than you think you might be able to. And now go one layer even further. So expanding another layer out further in your vicinity, in your area. And visually, if you can't see much further, maybe you have a dense forest around you or there's a bunch of houses that are blocking your view, then look up in the sky and expand your vision that way. And then you can still send your sense of hearing out further, but with your vision, you can always look up into the sky if you want to see further. And remembering to include the sounds, maybe not the sights, because we can't see behind us. Though, anyway, I won't go into that, but yeah, maybe some people can in a different way. But remember behind you, listening behind you. Great, good work. So now let's slowly start to walk your senses back toward your own body. So bringing yourself slowly back in, you can spiral back in, you can come directly back into yourself, listening as you go, looking as you go. noticing something different this time as you're returning to yourself. And then when you get back to your body, I want you just to connect with how it feels to be sitting where you're sitting right now. Do you feel your butt on the whatever it is, the chair, the earth? Notice what that feels like. The connection between you and that solid form. You can do the same with your feet. So bringing the connection, the awareness to your connection with your feet. And whenever it's touching, just imagining that whatever that is touching the earth somewhere. Just see if you can feel that connection between yourself and the earth right now. No matter how many stories you might be sitting up, maybe you have your feet right directly on the earth. Beautiful. And so if you'd like now, you can close your eyes for just a few moments. We're going to go within. So first begin by getting connected to your breath. And let's just be attentive to it at first. So we don't need to change anything just yet, just noticing where your breath is traveling, how deep or how shallow. Does your chest expand in all directions, both sides and in front and behind? So you can follow the air as it enters your nose or your mouth. And then watch it as it travels down into your body, into your lungs. All the little crevices of your lungs that it's touching. And then as it leaves your body, what's the journey for your breath as it leaves your body and comes back into contact with the air around it, meeting again with that one it had just left for a few moments. Now somehow transformed and new. Isn't that a beautiful thing to think about, that you have the ability to transform the air around you? So maybe on your next exhale, you can send a beautiful thought or a blessing to the land around you or to anything that you want, whatever it is that might touch your breath at some point. Maybe it's an insect in Tibet, or maybe it's a lion in Africa, or a person in the next town away. Wonderful. So when you're feeling ready, you can gently open your eyes and just allow your gaze to fall wherever it naturally does right now. You don't have to try to push it too far, but just let it fall onto something. Allow your gaze to get focused on a particular item. It could be just 10 feet in front of you. That's kind of a comfortable, natural distance for some people, or you could go a little bit further if you want to. And then once you're focused on that one point, allow your vision to soften in all directions. Expanding further and further out to the furthest reaches of your vision. How far on either side can you stretch? And then remembering above and below. And you can start to feel around your cheekbones and your eyes and just noticing if they're squinting, which means you're really focusing, or are they softened. So it's really allowing your eyes to get nice and soft and receptive. So just receiving with your eyes right now. And you're welcome or invited to stay in this softened gaze if you want to for the next little bit, as we now explore the land around us with our ears. I want you to listen for a sound that's doesn't have to be the loudest, but maybe that's the most prominent, the most consistent sound on your landscape right now. And without any judgment about that sound, can you just listen to it as if it is just a sound, if it maybe doesn't have an identity? And listen to the quality of the sound, maybe noticing if there's a rhythm or a texture to it. Asking yourself how high or how low is it? Any other questions that might come to your mind as you explore the intricacies of that sound. And now if you can, without losing that sound, that one that's prominent on your landscape, so ideally it's a sound that's consistent, without losing that one or letting it go from your awareness, now go ahead and listen for another sound. One that's maybe a little less frequent, but still audible. And see if you can hold both of those in your awareness right now, while also staying in your softened vision. Beautiful. So you're welcome to do this as we continue our practice today. You can, with your owl eyes, you're welcome to look around your landscape and just keep going back and forth between your softened vision and more focused vision. So you don't have to keep your eyes locked on any one particular place, but you certainly can. That can be a calming thing to do, just staying in one place. And then with our listening, what I want you to do is listen ideally for a bird sound, but it doesn't have to be. It can be an animal sound, because same thing with a dog, for instance. Let's say you have a dog barking in your neighborhood, which a lot of people do. Dogs' barks can mean different things. There's different qualities of a bark, right? So we can be listening for that. And so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to be shifting our awareness to the sounds around us. And when you hear one sound, I want you to really focus on one particular sound. And again, ideally it's a bird or a mammal, could be a human too. And what I want you to do first, we're going to do this step by step. So first what I want you to do is listen for the sound. And then what I want you to do is notice when you hear that sound, where you feel it in your own body. So the sounds often touch us in our body. And I just want you to connect to that. We'll just start with this first step. So hear a sound, and you can play with a couple different sounds, and then maybe come back to the original sound if you can, and see if it's still connecting with you in that same place. So we'll just start there. Where do you feel the sound in your own body when you hear it? Don't have to put any words to it, but just where do you feel it? And if for some reason it's either silent where you are, or maybe it's just the insects that are singing and vocalizing right now, because that's the case for me at the moment. There's no bird sounds that I can hear. Then just allow yourself to stay with that stillness and that quietness, because it's really important when we're practicing this to have a clear mind and to be quiet and stilled in order to interpret what's happening. So just allow yourself to stay in that stillness and continue to listen until a sound that we're looking for shows itself. You can also use the opportunity, if you're hearing an insect sound, to just ask yourself the same question, even though the responses are going to be a little bit different in terms of predators and alarm calls and whatnot. But still, you can ask yourself, where do you feel that insect call in your body, just as an opportunity to practice this if you're not hearing any bird song or sound at the moment. I find it to be helpful for this first step that um, sometimes it's easy for me to find that location in my body where I hear it or feel it, but sometimes it's more challenging. And if you're hearing a sound and you're finding it's a little bit difficult to pinpoint where you're feeling it, you can go ahead and close your eyes and just do your best to release any sort of judgment or ideas about where you're supposed to feel it. If you feel it in your big toe, you feel it in your big toe, doesn't matter. Just let your body have the experience that it's having with that sound. All right, good work, y'all. So that was our first step, just noticing where we feel it in our body. And now we're going to continue to listen and look if you want to, or you can just keep your eyes closed. That's fine too. And so now I want you to listen for what you feel physically. So when you hear that sound, what do you feel in your body? Again, it's not, we're not going to layer the emotion on it just yet, but what do you feel? Is it tightness? Is it like a softness? Is it a little tingle? Is it whatever thoughts come to your mind about the physical sensation that you may have when you hear a sound. So notice first where you feel it in your body, and then now we're going to layer on that second part of what you feel. So like what the physical, from a physical standpoint, the physical sensation that you feel when you hear that sound. All right, good work. So now we have our third layer to add on. And this one sometimes can be tricky for some people. So just remember that we're just playing. This is just for fun. There's nothing serious about this at all. So the next layer is to ask yourself the question of what do I feel emotionally when I hear this sound? So where do I feel it? What do I feel physically? And then emotionally, what's the emotion that arises in me when I hear this sound? And this is why we have to be really clear and grounded and centered when we're doing this practice, because it's easy to put our own perceptions on it. Like, that bird's sad, that bird is, but it's not so much about the bird that you're hearing, it's about you. So what do you feel when you hear that sound? And trying to release all judgment as much as you can about the situation that might be happening. So just noticing your own physical experience to the sound that you're hearing. For our last little bit of practice, you can let your mind relax a little bit now and just let your felt sense, that sense of you feeling into the environment around you, to slowly explore the landscape around you and just to notice if there's any particular feeling that you have, an emotional feeling, maybe a physical feeling, related to any particular area of your landscape. So just kind of slowly start to scan it. You can do it with your eyes closed or with your eyes open, and just begin to scan it with your felt sense of your body, not your mind, but just the feelings that you have around you. Just notice if any particular part of your landscape arouses any particular emotion. Good work, y'all. So take the next moment or two and offer gratitude or blessing to those ones that you connected with today. All right, so if you have to head out, thank you for coming and joining us today. Have a beautiful week, and otherwise, please stick around for our chat. So some of you may have heard me tell, there's a couple stories I was thinking of that I wanted to share related to this practice, and one of them is about this gentleman I worked with in wilderness therapy, and I remember, I don't know when it was, but I was just really impressed with him and his skills of awareness and whatnot. And and I asked him if he had ever done any classes with Tom Brown or anything like that. And he may have done one or two when he was, a few years before that. But he told me this story of when he was maybe like 6 or 7, and all throughout most of his childhood, he had this memory in particular, this one story he shared with me where he was inside his house and he was in the kitchen, and in his mind he saw a deer walking by, but like he was facing away from the window, but he knew that there was a deer walking behind him. And so then he looked out the window and there was a deer walking behind him. And he said that that would happen to him a lot, that he could see things and he would feel them there, as a child. And so this, some might think, oh, is it a gift you're just born with, or is this something that you can cultivate? And I think for sure it's something that you can cultivate, and that it is possible, that it is possible to. I mean, we all know that experience of, you're eating lunch somewhere at a cafe, and all of a sudden you look, for whatever reason, you look over and you're just like, what? Almost like you're saying, what? And there's a person staring at you, and you can like feel that presence of them staring at you. That's the most classic example of it, but it happens in really subtle ways too, with us as the wild human body that we are, So anyway, I'd love to hear your experience, anything that came to anyone. It doesn't matter. Actually, I'll tell the second one is of the woman Anna Breitenbach, who's animal communicator, and she's now world renowned. I think I've linked her video before where she did that video about, or she's most known for her video about the leopard, the black leopard, they first called him Diablo, now his name is Spirit, um, where she got to, yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful story where she was able to understand like what he was needing, and it totally changed his experience in the zoo that he was in. And totally surprised that the handlers and whatnot, they weren't expecting this massive change in this animal, just through this one interaction with Anna. And so anyway, but I knew her years ago, and I asked her like how she first learned about what she did, and she was saying that, you know, her teacher would just tell her that, you know, when you were working with people, when they were first sort of like learning, they had to like work with all these test cases, and that you were just supposed to tell the person what you were seeing in your mind and sort of feeling. And she said like oftentimes it would make no sense to you, but you had to convey whatever you saw or felt. And so often, like she had many stories where the person would just break down in tears, you know, and be like, yes, that was my husband. He just died 3 months ago and he had the tattoo of the same, you know, because Anna saw like a funky tattoo or something like that, this image of something. And like time after time, she just realized to just trust what she was seeing and feeling, and not doubt it or criticize it or judge it. And that's the part of our minds, I think, that we have to do a little bit of work on in the quieting of, where it's just like we might feel or see something and be like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm just gonna push that thought away, you know? Um, so yeah, that's how she became sort of who she is today, is by just trusting those thoughts. They weren't always right, you know, but a lot of times they were enough to have her continue what she was doing. So anyway, I'd love to hear from you guys. What was your experience this morning? And if you're not visible on camera, just put your virtual hand up if you want to share. And if you are, then just wave your real hand. Hi, Gabrielle, go for it.
Well, it was a really interesting morning. I sat here and had breakfast before I came onto your bird sit, and noticed that my California pepper tree is full of fig beetles. And I went, oh, yeah, this is the time when they come out, and they're so beautiful and big and scary sometimes, you know, when they dive on you. And so I had very little birds today. And the first sound was like water dripping, very subtle. And so the second sound was these fig beetles. And it was really interesting because it was so subtle, you know, it's almost like I could hear their wings or their buzzing, and until one of them flew around me and buzzed really my head. And then I really got into the feeling. And the feeling was one of real comfort, like, you know, like they're scarabs. They're related to ancient Egypt, and there's something spiritual about it. And it was exactly what I needed today, was that kind of feeling. So that was huge.
Thank you so much for sharing that. My experience also was with the insects, because it was really very silent here, and I was dismissing them at first, because I think it's easier for us as humans to learn this and to practice it with a bird or with a mammal, because we can actually see their behavior. It's a little bit easier to make an interpretation, you know, when we see the birds alarming and then we watch the hawk fly by, right? That's easy to piece those together and make the connection with like, yeah, my body felt this way, and then I saw that happen. But when I was listening to the insects this morning, I almost dismissed it as like, it's an insect. Like, it's not really what I want to focus on right now. And I was like, no, they have just as an elaborate world as the mammals and the birds do, and we do. And who knows, maybe I can feel what they're experiencing. Maybe I can get a sense of what's happening in the world for them. And who's to say like that they're not going to communicate something important to me right now. So um yeah, that was a rich sort of teaching for me from them. So thank you for sharing that one for you as well. Yeah, I'm grateful for that.
There was another sound that I did hear twice intermittently, and I have a roosting place for herons behind me, behind my channel. And all of a sudden, one of them just squawked. They have that awfully ugly squawk. And I thought, oh, was that alarm? And then I just started laughing because when they're the most beautiful bird, and then they have this god awful squawk. And what I got was then in between the two sounds, there was a fire truck. And that was an alarm. But back to the herons, I just laughed. Whenever I hear that sound, it just for me makes me feel really like joyfully happy. I don't know.
I know it is. It's like so. What's the word? Dichotomous? Is that right? Where it's just like there's dissonance there, where you see this like gorgeous, elegant bird, and it's like rah, it just
Yeah.
makes like croaking, dying, strangled sound, and but you are right, actually, that the majority of the times when we hear that, like they are a pretty silent bird. They don't really speak very much, but when they do, something is usually going on. There's some reason that they were disturbed, and it is a distressing sound. And some birds sound distressed, but it's like to us, but they actually aren't. That's just their communication call. Majority of birds, when you hear a distressing sound, it does mean that there's some level of distress there. And with the herons, I think it is often the case. They're either just annoyed with something, like maybe another heron is there and they're just communicating to that, or another bird came into their space and they're communicating and they're annoyed, or sometimes it is like there's a threat of some sort, like there's a crocodile in the water and they have to move, or there's a human coming by with their dog, and so yeah, quite often it is a source it is an alarm call.
And it's funny because I couldn't see it. My
Mm.
trees have gotten too big. But when they land in the evening on their roosting tree, they're always fighting for space on
Yeah,
the limbs, and that's when they make that
that's
squawking sound.
exactly, kind of annoyed at someone else. And so this just came up for us. I was teaching a live class here, and this weekend, and we heard or we watched a great egret, which is very similar to a great blue heron. It's just white. We watched a great egret who has a very similar vocalization fly across the water, and it was like rah, 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 as it went. And we were talking in the class how, here in North America, for the most part, we hear that, we see it, we're like, oh, interesting, and if you know more, you're like, okay, it was probably distressed by something. But I was like, one of our gentlemen in the class just came back from a safari in Africa. And I was like, if we were in Africa and that just happened down the river a little bit, we'd be needing to, like, we'd be paying attention to that. If we didn't have our guides and guns and things like that with us, like that would be a sound that would key us in. Like if we were the Bushmen walking around, to be like, all right, something just scared that heron, that egret, like we probably need to pay attention to that. It could have been a crocodile or an alligator in the water, whatever, but well, for them it would be crocodile. It could have been that in the water, but it could have also been a lion coming by or something, So like those are just really, yeah, wonderful to pay attention to. But thank you, Gabrielle, for so much for your share. Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Wait, Marissa's saying, let me read Marissa's. She's saying, this is what I saw after I opened my eyes after Kristi talked about being watched. The picture there.
Whole bunch of birds, a dozen birds, and they
They're
were
all
just,
looking.
they're all looking, it's like, where's their food? Because they finished it. But it's like I open my eyes and that's what I see is all these little faces staring at me, trying to beam. It was so funny.
I see you. You're in there. Come feed us. Now, now, Marisa, when you saw that, when you opened your eyes, but before you opened your eyes, did you happen to feel anything? Was there a feeling that occurred? And
There was a feeling I was being watched. Yeah, that's why I
did.
opened my eyes.
Wow. So you felt
Because
it.
they were beaming.
Yeah.
Peanuts, peanuts, sunflower seeds.
Do you remember, like, if you can take yourself back there, sometimes it can be hard to go back there, but do you remember where you felt that in your body when you felt being
I
watched? Like
did, yeah.
feeling, yeah.
I feel it in my heart and the right lung. So that core,
Yeah.
that whole horizontal line of the heart
Yeah.
is
And you
where
were
I
just like,
feel it.
I have to open my eyes and look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow,
And
right
then I see all
on.
these faces like staring at me. It's like, okay, okay.
That is the best. So cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
My pleasure.
That's rad. Yeah. Sweet. Who else wants to share? And you don't have to have anything profound. Don't feel like, oh, I have to have seen, what Marisa just saw or, Gabrielle, like whatever is there for you. Yeah, Linda, please. Oops, you're muted, Linda. Still muted. Let me see if I can get you.
Okay, I'm unmuted, right?
Yes, now you are. Yep.
Good. Well, this is definitely not profound. So it's a good time. What I connected with today throughout the whole time that we were meditating was the grandpa tree. I'm out in front of my house today, and the grandpa tree's out here, which is a huge ponderosa pine tree. We had an arborist do a core sample when we first moved here, and he told us it was over 300 years old. So he's an ancient, and I always feel this sense of calm and connection and um, like steadiness and happiness with this tree. It's just this magnificent tree. And today, um, what I connected with and what I saw and what I felt was there were just dozens of baby birds here this morning, like little pine siskins and red-breasted nuthatches and these little chickadees. Um, and it's frequently it's such a large tree that it's really hard to see if there's nests up there. So I don't know if these were um, birds that had been in a nest in grandpa tree, but they were all in the grandpa tree, and there was just this wonderful sense that all is well. Grandpa is taking care of all these little guys, he's giving them a good start in life. My projection, of course, but I mean, they were all in there. So anyway, it was just very, um, it was just very comforting and satisfying and fun this morning. So thank you. Grandpa
Yeah,
is,
right on.
yeah.
Yeah, what a beautiful image to have that big grandpa tree there for you. And
Mhm.
I would imagine too that there must have been something in there, because if they're young ones, they're probably vocalizing,
Mhm.
something in their vocalizations that helped you to feel that sense of all is well. Would you say
Mhm.
that's the case, that something in their vocalizations communicated that to you as well?
Yeah, it was the sound of the cacophony of birds, when they're all happy and they're just going about what they're doing. They've got plenty to eat and they're just being birds. And so, yeah, there was something in there. It wasn't like they were alarmed or, well, the pine siskins do like to kind of push each other around a little bit sometimes, but other than that, um, yeah, it was just, I'd say you're right. The sound of the birds was very comforting and reassuring and uplifting too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, sweet Linda. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Hmm. All right. Who else wants to share their story from the morning? Yeah, Kelly, please.
I want to thank you for this experience because I went out to a place that it's a place I've always expected to just be rich with birds, and today it really was. I just saw and heard quite a few different species, and um, just got to interact with them for a while, and so that was just it was a joy this morning, and I appreciate that. And as far as the communication piece, I feel like I heard most everything in my throat and or felt it in my throat, and it was just like normal communication, like we're just chirping, we're just going back and forth. It got quiet for a little while, but then it came back. But yeah, just wanted to thank you for that experience.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well done going out to that beautiful place for yourself. And um, Yeah, that can be a common thing. I think people with the birds when they're having their companion calls or their contact calls, that sometimes some people will feel it in their throat, like we're just talking, it's like blah, 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 right? In that part of their body. So yeah, that's interesting that that's where you were feeling it. Not that it has to mean that way for everybody, but that's something I commonly hear is for like the contact calls is that it's sort of a throat experience for some people. Yeah. Sweet, Kelly. Thanks. Yeah. Awesome. Anyone else? Yeah. Julia, please.
Well, thanks for bringing us out. My one goldfinch came out, so that was a delight to see, and so on. I had difficulty feeling the sound in a certain part of my body, but I could identify how it felt, and so that there's not much bird sound going on, and except toward the end, there were a couple of crows, and they were just squawking. How did I get balloons going up?
You
I
must have, there's a feature that you can turn on or turn off on Zoom that when you make certain hand gestures, like if you do this right now, make the heart gesture, you'll have a bunch of hearts pop up all around if it can see you do it. But anyway, you must have that feature turned on. I don't know what it is with balloons. Maybe it's this kind of a thing that makes the balloons go, but yeah. So anyway,
okay. Surprises all along. So these crows, they were doing a squawk kind of thing, not a caw, and not their conversational voice, because that happens, sometimes they get together and talk about their kids or something like that in the evening. But this is squawk. And at my first, how that felt was just a tightening up, as if I had the gumption defending a boundary or something. I said, oh no, you don't, that kind, but one would squawk and the other would answer, and then one would squawk from a little bit different place and this one would move and answer it back. And so I don't know whether one was kind of chasing another out of its territory, or I thought, well, maybe that's just how crows sound. And I've got a call. I'm going to have to call them back or something. What was I going to say?
you were saying maybe that's just how crows sound, like that
Yeah,
squawk.
like say, hey, let's go exploring. Come on out and play. Let's go over here and see what's happening over here. So okay, I'm with you. I don't know what crow. Squawking to a crow may be totally different from that quality of sound that a human would make and respond to. So that was just my thought. I was curious.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons why we take the time to like quiet ourselves within, because it can be so easy for us to make the sort of assumptions or associations with like, if I were to squawk, this is what I would mean, versus like what a crow, and it very well may be that you were feeling into and intuiting what was happening for the crow. But I think in the beginning, when we're sort of first like trying this all out, oftentimes like our own human thoughts about the sound come in versus just allowing ourselves to receive the sound and feeling the emotion without any story about the emotion, right? And so that's why, again, that's why this is practice, because we're just practicing going back and forth, with the experience. And then the beauty of having a bird actually make the sound, in a lot of cases, not all cases, is that sometimes you get to see the reaction. So it would be nice. I have to say, like quite often, I was sort of lamenting with one of my friends when we were living in Western Washington, that because it's so dense there, that you rarely get to see the source of an alarm. So like all these times you might hear a bird alarm, but you rarely get to see what was causing it because it's like everything's so thick and dense there. But again, that's sort of the hope or the idea, is that with a bird or with a mammal that you can practice it, and then you can kind of test it out and be like, well, what did the crows do next? You know, like what happened right after that? And again, we can't always see everything they can see, and we don't always know, but it's just a good place to start, you know? So nice job. Nice job. Yeah. All right. One more before we go. You guys good? Awesome. Well, keep practicing this. This is a good one. And again, I just want to reiterate that it is possible to feel into this for all of us. And it just takes a little, just a little doing, clearing our minds. That's why, honestly, we take the majority, like the first half of the sit, to get quiet, to go within, and because it can help us in so many ways, whether it's just the practice we're doing today or wanting to get another bird on our life list. The more quiet and still we are within, the more we're going to see. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for coming and sharing your beautiful stories and your experiences today, and just allowing this to be a really rich time together with all of us all over the country. So have a beautiful rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. All right. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.